Hello, everyone. I'm Johnny. Welcome to M Decoded. 2021. The 32nd Summer Olympics were held in Tokyo, Japan. The world's attention was focused on Japan. However, just 3 days after the opening ceremony, an incident occurred in Takatsuki City, Osaka Prefecture. It caused a sense of panic and unease among those immersed in the Olympic atmosphere. Takatsuki City is located in the northern part of Osaka Prefecture, Japan, close to Kyoto City. It's known for the magnificent Setsu Gorge, its natural scenery and rich historical sites. It's a place where nature and culture blend perfectly. The protagonist of our story is Naoko Takai. She's 54 years old and works at a bank. She's single and has no children. She lives alone in a detached house in Hachimancho, Takatsuki City. When she's not working, she usually stays at home. Her social circle is relatively small, and she leads a regular life. One day, she didn't show up for work on time, which was unusual for her. Her colleagues and relatives started searching for her. What happened to her? Let's rewind to July 26, 2021. July 26, 2021. It was a Monday, during the Summer Olympics. The weather was scorching hot. In Takatsuki City, the asphalt roads were baking under the sun. Waves of heat rose from the ground, distorting the view. It was right after the Olympic opening ceremony, from July 22nd to 25th, that the bank where Naoko Takai worked was closed for the holidays. July 26th was the day they were supposed to return to work. But this day was different. Her colleagues noticed she hadn't come to work. Naoko Takai lived alone. In case of emergencies, she had given a spare key to her house to a relative. Since she didn't show up for work and hadn't called in sick, her colleagues tried calling her, but no one answered. Having no other choice, they contacted her relative. Upon receiving the call, the relative immediately went to Naoko Takai's house, which wasn't far, to check on her. It was a typical traditional Japanese house, 2 stories high, primarily made of wood, with a tiled roof. It had a yard with many plants. The relative politely knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Then he took out the spare key and opened the door. Inside, everything was tidy and seemed normal. He went to the bedroom, and the moment he opened the door, foul odor hit him. Following the smell, in the bathroom, he discovered a severely decomposed female body. She was lying in a bathtub full of water, her body severely swollen and disfigured, making her unrecognizable. Horrified, the relative ran outside and called the police. After receiving the call, the police immediately arrived at the scene. They cordoned off the area and began their investigation. Upon inspection, they confirmed the woman in the bathtub was Naoko Takai. She was naked and had no visible injuries. A plastic cable tie was tied around her right wrist, and there were marks of a similar tie on her left wrist. A bank book and an envelope containing 700,000 yen in cash were found on the table in the room. Her cell phone was also discovered at the scene. Several empty liquor bottles were in the living room. There were no signs of forced entry or any valuables missing. It appeared as if Naoko Takai had gotten drunk, taken a bath, and accidentally fallen into the filled bathtub, drowning. However, the possibilities of suicide or foul play couldn't be ruled out. The police first questioned the person who reported the incident. He stated that he was a relative of Naoko Takai, and that their families lived close by and visited each other often. That morning, he received a call from one of Naoko Takai's colleagues, saying she hadn't shown up for work and hadn't called in. This had never happened before. Worried, after hanging up, he went to Naoko Takai's house to check on her, and then discovered the horrific scene. It was learned that Naoko Takai was an only child. Her parents divorced when she was young, and she lived with her mother. After graduating from university, she started working at a local bank. Her income was stable, perhaps influenced by her parents' failed marriage. She never married. As her mother got older, she developed Alzheimer's disease and couldn't take care of herself. Not wanting to be a burden to her daughter, Naoko's mother transferred a substantial amount of her savings to her daughter and moved into a nursing home. Naoko Takai lived alone in the old house and visited her mother regularly. The police questioned residents in the neighborhood. One neighbor said, Naoko Takai was a calm and generous person. Even though her mother left her a considerable sum of money, she never showed it off and continued to live a simple life. She always greeted people and was very down to earth. Another neighbor mentioned that although Naoko Takai lived alone, she always kept her yard and plants meticulously maintained. She had a positive outlook on life and enjoyed a drink occasionally, but never excessively. She was moderate in her habits. She didn't seem like someone who would take her own life. A close friend said, she was a lively and cheerful person, never quiet. I never imagined something like this would happen to someone close to me. I'm shocked and saddened. It's hard to accept. Naoko Takai's colleagues described her as a competent and humble person. She was kind to others and seemed to have few worries in life. July 21st was her last day at work. She didn't exhibit any unusual behavior. The police reviewed surveillance footage from the area around Naoko Takai's house. The footage showed that on the evening of July 21st, after Naoko Takai returned home from work on her bicycle, she wasn't seen leaving again, because she had been in the bathtub for some time. And the hot weather, her body was severely decomposed. This made the forensic investigation challenging and time-consuming. 7 months after the incident, the autopsy report finally came out. There was a blunt force trauma to her forehead, caused by some external force. The cause of death was drowning. The time of death was determined to be July 22nd. Notably, no alcohol was found in her system, despite the empty liquor bottles in the living room. Naoko Takai did enjoy drinking, meaning she hadn't had any alcohol that day. The bottles might have been left over from previous drinking sessions, or planted by the perpetrator to make it look like a suicide. The plastic cable ties on her wrists further supported this theory. After receiving the autopsy report, the police officially classified the case as a homicide. Shortly after, there was a breakthrough in the investigation. It was discovered that, in February 2021, 5 months before the incident, a 28-year-old man had legally become Naoko Takai's adopted son. His name was Ryo Matsuda. After the adoption, he changed his last name to Rin Takai. When the news broke, it immediately caught the public's attention. Could he be connected to Naoko Takai's death? Reporters found Rin Takai in a parking lot. He was wearing a tracksuit and sunglasses. When questioned by reporters, he appeared calm and composed.
どういう人でした？
どういう人？めっちゃ人でしたよ。悲しいとかっていう感じの先にびっくりの方が最初は大きかったですね。
どういう経緯で？
もともと独身で、はい、兄弟もいなくて、
はい、後継ぎみたいな感じの。
まあそうですね。向こうから打診が来て、はい、検討して、はい、っていう感じです。
なんで受けたんですか、リンさんは。
受けない理由がなかったんですね、間違い。
as a legally adopted son. It was perfectly legitimate for Rin Takai to inherit his adoptive mother's estate. However, his series of actions after the incident inevitably aroused the police's suspicion. For example, he showed complete indifference to his adoptive mother's death and never contacted the police to inquire about the progress of the case. He also didn't express any grief, as if he wasn't interested in the matter at all. So why did he suddenly adopt someone as his mother? According to the investigation, Naoko Takai had 2 life insurance policies, with a total value of 150 million yen. The beneficiary of both policies was Rin Takai. Rin Takai lived a very extravagant life, showcasing designer clothes all over his social media. But with his actual income, he couldn't afford these expenses. After Naoko Takai's death, he not only inherited her estate, but also received a huge insurance payout. He was the primary beneficiary. The police believe that this was his motive. Takai Rin was born in Hyogo Prefecture in 1993 and attended the School of Business Administration at Kwansei Gakuin University. He loved sports, and at 180 centimeters tall, he played American football until college. He showed promise. And a college classmate said, Rin Takai was an excellent student, participated in various club activities, and was a hard-working and ambitious person. After graduating from university, he gradually lost contact with his classmates. The last time his classmates saw him was a year ago at his wedding. He married a beautiful woman. The police investigated Rin Takai's work history. After graduating, through an acquaintance, he got a sales job at a well-known foreign insurance company. Naoko Takai was one of his clients and purchased a life insurance policy with a coverage of 100 million yen. The beneficiary was her mother, who lived in a nursing home. But soon after, Rin Takai received numerous customer complaints. Some people reported that he made false claims while selling insurance, concealed the fact that he was married, maintained ambiguous relationships with several single women, and coaxed them into buying insurance. He even proposed marriage to several single women. As the number of complaints increased, his clients began to cancel their policies, causing the company some losses. In March 2020, he was suspended from his job. 3 months later, Rin Takai moved to another insurance company. Naoko Takai, as a former client, after being relentlessly pursued by him, purchased another life insurance policy for 50 million yen. The beneficiary was still her mother in the nursing home. In February 2021, after becoming legally adopted by Naoko Takai, Rin Takai changed his surname. This raised questions within the company. He explained to his colleagues that his parents had divorced and that his mother's maiden name was Takai, so he took her name. This was his excuse. Rin Takai was handsome and charismatic. He quickly achieved good results at his new insurance company, earning the recognition of his superiors and colleagues. According to a colleague, Rin Takai often asked if anyone knew any hitmen, and every time he brought up this topic, he was very serious, as if he wasn't joking. Once a colleague joked that they had a way to contact such professionals. He immediately became interested and asked how he could contact this person, with a sense of urgency in his voice. When the colleague replied that it was just a joke, he looked disappointed. The police contacted Rin Takai's parents, but surprisingly, they claimed to have no knowledge of their son changing his surname. Furthermore, they hadn't even divorced, and his mother's maiden name wasn't Takai. An acquaintance of Rin Takai said that since he started working, his personality had changed drastically. He liked to show off his wealth to his friends. giving the impression that he was superior to them. But his family was ordinary, and he hadn't had much money before. Now, he suddenly seemed to have become rich overnight. The police learned that, after working at the new company for a while, someone exposed the scandal of his complaints at the previous company. His license was revoked, and he was barred from working in the insurance industry. In April 2021, Rin Takai was forced to leave the new company and started working in real estate. Although his income decreased compared to before, his spending habits didn't change. He maintained relationships with multiple women, and his wife, unable to tolerate it, eventually divorced him. Now single, he bought a sports car for nearly 30 million yen and frequented upscale establishments with different women every day. He was a lavish spender, buying millions of yen worth of jewelry at a time. The police believed that his continuous high spending might have led him into financial difficulties, thus giving rise to criminal intent. The police tried to talk to Rin Takai several times, but he claimed to know nothing and couldn't understand why he had become the insurance beneficiary. He only hoped that the police would catch the culprit soon. However, his movements were clearly unusual. Rin Takai originally lived in an apartment in Akasaka, Minato Ward, Tokyo, but he started moving frequently after the incident. As the case gained publicity, a reporter ran into Rin Takai on a street in Kanagawa Prefecture and chased after him for an interview. He was walking briskly down the street, pushing a bicycle. Upon seeing the reporter, he looked surprised and blurted out, "How did you know I was here?" When the reporter asked him about the Naoko Takai case, Rin Takai said that he was cooking at home at the time of the incident and shopping nearby. He hadn't gone far, and therefore knew nothing. Then he walked faster and faster, avoiding the camera. The investigation revealed that he had falsified some documents. During the adoption process, he had forged the name and seal of another person in the guarantor section. A year after the incident, the police arrested Rin Takai on suspicion of forgery. The investigation showed that in May 2021, 3 months after being adopted, Rin Takai changed the beneficiary of Naoko Takai's 50 million yen life insurance policy to himself. The day after Naoko Takai's death, he changed the beneficiary of the other 100 million yen life insurance policy to himself as well. He clearly had a motive. However, when questioned by the police, he remained silent. The investigation revealed that Rin Takai was also involved in a credit card fraud case. Furthermore, after Naoko Takai's death, Rin Takai petitioned the court to dissolve his adoption. According to the law, if Naoko Takai died, even if the adoption was dissolved, Rin Takai would still have the right to inherit her estate. His intentions were crystal clear. The police reviewed a large amount of surveillance footage from around Naoko Takai's home before the incident. After careful review, a suspicious man caught their attention. The footage showed that on the afternoon of July 22, 2021, a man was loitering on the road near Naoko Takai's home. The man was tall, wearing a bucket hat, sunglasses, and a mask. He was carrying a messenger bag. A closer look revealed that he was holding a roll of transparent tape in his left hand and wearing a white glove on his right hand. He looked suspicious. At first, the police couldn't identify the man. 2 hours later, the same surveillance camera captured him again. The messenger bag he was carrying was clearly visible. This became the key to solving the case. The style and pattern of the messenger bag were identical to the bag Rin Takai had been carrying when he was previously questioned. They confirmed that the man in the surveillance footage was Rin Takai. The police also obtained surveillance footage of Rin Takai entering and exiting his apartment building before the incident. The footage showed him wearing a long wig, disguised as a woman, leaving the apartment, hurrying along, identifiable by his build and gait. He disguised himself as a woman to commit the crime in Takatsuki. He changed back into men's clothing midway. His aim was to fabricate an alibi. But he never imagined a single shoulder bag would unravel his entire scheme. Police, while examining Nao Takai's phone, discovered she had sent an email to Rin Takai on July 23rd. But the forensic report showed she died on July 22nd. There's a discrepancy in the timeline. However, achieving this effect isn't difficult. Could be done by scheduling the email to be sent later. Or perhaps Nao Takai didn't send it at all. Perhaps Rin Takai sent it. The purpose being to create the illusion she was still alive. August 2022. Police arrested Rin Takai on suspicion of murder, fraud, and other charges. He simply said, "I choose to remain silent." 2 days later, Rin Takai was transferred to the Osaka Prefectural Fukushima Police Station. While the prosecution was compiling evidence, just 5 days later, there was a dramatic turn of events. September 1st, news broke that caught public attention. At 7 a.m. that morning, during a routine morning check, a police officer found Rin Takai barely alive. He was immediately rushed to the hospital. Despite all efforts to save him, he passed away at 10:21 p.m. that night. It's reported Rin Takai was held in solitary confinement in a 5-square-meter room. He had casually mentioned to a patrolling officer his thoughts of escaping. As a result, an additional metal grill was installed on his window, and he was placed under special observation. Patrol frequency was increased from 4 times an hour to 5. Unexpectedly, while the officer was momentarily distracted, Rin Takai tore his clothes into strips and took his own life. He left a note for his family that read, "I'll go ahead." In fact, during his detention, he had written a note expressing negative emotions to the police. But they didn't take it seriously enough, and didn't report it to their superiors. Following Rin Takai's death, the Osaka District Public Prosecutor's Office dropped all charges against him. The Osaka Prefectural Police expressed deep regret for their inability to uncover the truth, and apologized to the victim's family. The officers involved were also disciplined. With Rin Takai's death, many questions remain unanswered. For instance, why did Nao Takai adopt Rin Takai? Was it voluntary or coerced? What was the true nature of their relationship? Was Nao Takai aware of Rin Takai's changes to the insurance beneficiary? And so on. Regarding these questions, netizens have offered their speculations. From the very beginning of his insurance career, Rin Takai carefully selected Nao Takai, who lived alone. He then made every effort to get close to her, to win her over. Under his charm offensive, Nao Takai quickly fell for him, and willingly gave him her savings to spend. She also purchased a substantial life insurance policy. Later, Rin Takai, under the pretense of providing companionship and care in her old age, persuaded Nao Takai to adopt him. He then requested to be named the beneficiary of her insurance. Nao Takai agreed to change the beneficiary of the 50 million yen policy, but not the 100 million yen policy. This angered Rin Takai. So, in a fit of rage, he murdered her. In any case, these are just speculations. The deceased are gone. The truth of the matter has died with them, buried forever.